Okay, then why don't we start, there were no septic, designs. So if we look at, we could quickly go through the first group of items. We've got Colleen's timesheet, which is a normal 70-hour, for the 2 weeks. Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
And I am too, Colleen, so that's approved. The next
Okay.
one, that we have is the accounts to be transferred. And we've got Board of Health permits, $170, Board of Health licenses, $330, gas permit, $100, totaling $600. Are we okay with this? I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless
Are we
you.
okay? Thank you.
Bless
Are we
you.
okay?
And yes.
Lee,
Yes.
I am too, Colleen, so that's approved.
Okay.
The next one is food service establishment for early mug. Are we okay with that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am too, so that's approved, Colleen.
Obviously,
Mhm.
Lynn has to take a look, and we had some issues with them last time, so she'll take a look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one is also to operate a food service establishment, and that's Pioneer Valley, Chapter 8 at 104 West State Street. Are we good with that one?
Yes.
Yes.
I am too, Colleen, that's approved.
Mhm.
Next one is Carl's site work. Looks like there's 2 permits. One is a hauler's permit and the other's an installer's permit. That's both the renewals. Are we okay with that one? Those.
Yes.
Yes.
And I am too, so those are both approved, Colleen. Next
Okay.
one is Keith Bradway of KWB Construction, and that one is an installer's permit. Are we good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
And I am too, Colleen, that's approved. And Colleen did
Okay.
look this up for us on IMP Landscape and Construction, that apparently this is a renewal that's been renewed since 2017. Last meeting, we didn't act on this. Are we okay with this now?
Yep.
Yes.
Me too, Colleen, so that's approved. Now, he can. It looks like Walter Binsick may be here, even though it's a 7:15 appointment. I'm gonna make sure you guys are turned off, are muted.
Hi, can you guys hear us?
Okay. Yes, I can hear now.
All right, it's Walter and Alex from Fronty Dumpster. How are you guys?
Hello, everyone.
Good. How are you?
Good.
So
Good.
you asked to speak to us that our comments that we had at our last meeting is that we recommended that the planning board not approve this without a plan to stop the liquids that could come off the truck or the dumpsters from getting into the groundwater.
Correct.
So the floor is yours.
Yeah, I just want to start off again. Thank you for having both of us on here. My name's Alex. This is Walter. We both run 413 Dumpster, and we're thrilled to have this opportunity to join the Granby community with all you guys. My first question would be, has anyone had a chance to review the letter that was sent over to Colleen last week?
I certainly have.
Okay, perfect.
And it was a very well-written letter. I will say that.
Oh, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much. So honestly, the letter states the majority of what we want to talk to you guys about. First and foremost, we appreciate everything the Board of Health does, and we want to work in unison with you guys to make sure that we're taking all the proper steps to protect the environment and our equipment, everything that we do. So it shouldn't be of a concern. The concern that was written to the planning board, which is then given to us by the Board of Health, was that there is a concern of leaking fluids, whether it's from a dumpster or from trucks. And we kind of want to just discuss some of that with you. As much as the letter stated, we will never be storing waste there. We follow all Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection laws,
Regulations.
and regulations. So we actually can't bring back or transfer waste at the location. All waste is discarded at 4 contracted places that we have. So any dumpsters that would be on site and stored there would be completely empty. The dumpsters are sealed, so even if there was anything in them, nothing can leak out of them. There isn't a concern of leaking fluids from dumpsters. The only leaking fluid that we can see being a concern is from trucks. Now, to kind of mitigate that, I mean, we're a small business. We don't have a huge fleet. We have about 10 trucks or so.
And part of it, the trucks we parking inside also.
Exactly.
Because they're small, like as side of the pickup trucks. So we purchased this property. There's a 4 bays or 5,
There's 5 bays.
5 bays. So those trucks we park inside.
So we're talking about a baker's dozen of trucks left on the outside, and the only thing I can say is we maintain our fleet to the highest standards. We were able to pull all maintenance logs. We do everything locally in the area, so nothing ever leaks. But if it does ever make the Board of Health feel better, we're happy to put down oil absorbent pads or kind of look to your guidance to see how we should best address that to make sure we're following anything and protocols that you set forward.
First of all, second of all, we not storage any fuel on the site. We got a fueling company from Connecticut, Diesel Direct. They come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have all receipts for the fuels, each truck, how many gallons they put it in. We don't do any major repairs on the trucks on the site also. We do all with the different locations. Hampshire Towing do it in Belchertown, and Nick and in South Hadley do the rest of it. So we don't do any major repairs, oil change, and stuff like that on the site. We got all record of our fleet. Last year alone, we spent like over $60,000 on the repairs. So my trucks, it's a 99% contain oils. I don't see any leaks so far underneath my trucks. I know this is concern, but like I said, we can address that unless we see any. But Mark.
Well, my feeling is that we do know down the street we've got a well now that's contaminated with some kind of hydrocarbons. My personal feeling is the Board of Health has been, I don't want to say lax, but not really looking at the possible impact of spills. And in your case, don't know how big the fuel tanks are, but certainly if you've got 10 trucks with 100 gallons of diesel and
Roughly, yes.
and whatever 20 gallons of hydraulic fluid, you've got on the ground sitting there overnight more than 1,000 gallons of hydrocarbon. And my personal feeling is that we're looking for something that says spend some money for some pavement with some berms with something on them that you can plug at if there's a leak to stop that stuff from going into the ground. So I'm just thinking it's not that we're saying put $100,000 worth of safety systems in there. It's saying park it on pavement. I don't know what Herb and Lee feel.
A couple of things I just want to add quickly as well to that. So part of the property is paved. The area where we will be parking our trucks, we're putting down a gravel hard pack there. There is a paved portion as well as the 5 bays. So we're really kind of talking only about 2 or 3 trucks here. We did hear the news about what happened across the street. In my opinion, it's not a fair comparison because different business models entirely. They operate an auto body and repair business. There was a prior, All Power, which services engines. They do leaks and all.
They got a lot of stuff.
They stored oil and they drained
a
oil.
lot
They worked
junk
on
cars behind the building.
exactly. So it's not really a fair comparison because we're only parking trucks, as does Mass West across the street, and they have about 30 trucks plus heavy equipment. So we're a drop in the bucket compared to what already is approved on the street.
Tell me more about oil absorbent pads.
Well, that's a special pads designed to absorb any leakage from the trucks. It's like a material, looks like a almost thick felt. And if you see any leaks, you place it underneath the truck and they absorb the oil in case of leak. They also got special guards. You place them around that pad and they contaminate for the leaking. It's every my trucks call them the spilling kit. Every single truck have that kit in my truck. So this is the law by the DOT.
But I think you just said that if you saw a leak, you would use this.
Yeah,
What about the trucks that you don't see any leak?
I see my trucks 24/7. I'm the owner of the business. I see my trucks.
Again, because we have such a small fleet, we maintain everything. We do routine maintenance weekly. We have a mechanic that stops by, does everything, and checks everything. So we're always on top of everything. And these pads can be very easily moved and put onto trucks as necessary. And they're always in each truck, again, as per DOT regulations for safety issues.
They're
My
in,
feeling, go ahead.
I got the DOT record from the DOT. I've been in the business for 11 years, and my record is clean. I get pulled over by DOT several times, and I don't have any citation, any violation because of leaks. DOT no let you run if you leak the oil. So you can quite welcome coming over to my property where I rent it right now. You can take a look at my trucks anytime.
so the pads are in the truck?
Yes, we got spilling kit with us all the time
For emergency situations like that.
We got sometimes they happen. You get to the car accident and somebody purchase your tank, that bump to your tank, and start dripping or stuff like that. So we place those absorbing pads underneath the tank, so absorbing tank up to 20 gallons.
So, Walter,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. My question, Walter, is that the company that's currently operating out of the old lumber yard,
Yes,
are they by the DOT standards? Are they supposed to have the same kit?
that's the DOT regulation. I don't know if they have it or not. It's not my business. I know how I operate my business. I got spilling kits in my trucks.
Every truck's supposed to have a kit in it.
Okay, and from what I've understood, that the place at the old lumber yard is basically on the same side of the street that you're going to be on.
Yeah, it's only maybe a quarter of a mile from me.
Okay, and they may or may not all be parked on
Oh no, they're not.
asphalt.
They're not. They're not asphalt. Listen, it's a big company. They got excavators. They got dozers. They got backhoes. They got tractors. They're renting property for another trucking outfit. They got 5 tankers and they got 6 pulling tractors. That's a big operation. Probably you're talking about a 40, 50 piece of equipment, and they park in the dirt and the gravel. So I don't know what the law is for them. I'm not worried. I'm worried that I may be going too far in my case because, like I said, they don't have that. I don't want to put him in trouble. But sorry, the nice people.
No. I'm just trying to get a sense of that the DOT regulations basically trying to keep every piece of equipment dry, and I don't know if that pertains to.
Well, that's
I know it pertains to something over the road, but I don't know if it pertains to something like an excavator.
But excavator have to be moved by something. But the tractor and trailer pull them out with.
Yeah.
But like I said, this is how I run my business.
Okay. No, I mean, I understand what you're telling me. I hear it. I think it sounds reasonable to me at this point in time. Maybe the board can do what it wants, but maybe some random visits would be appropriate in the future. The thing with what we're doing here, and I'm at this point, I'm just chatting with Dick and Herb, is that there's a lot of people in this town that have vehicles of various sizes and equipment all over the place, different construction companies. And I think the majority of them are on people's private property. So I don't know if we're setting standards that everyone has to bring it up to, you know what I mean? You drive by, and I'm not picking on Mark's Garage, but you drive by Mark's Garage,
For example, yeah.
or you go by different small construction companies in town. They may have a couple tractors, backhoes, excavators, this and that. And they are, I think 99% of them are parked on either gravel or just dirt. So I completely understand Dick's point of view with water contamination, which is a huge issue.
Of course.
But I guess my concern is that it has to be, at some point in time, maybe all or none.
My feeling is that you go, if you look at the guys out on Morgan Street that were running the fuel business, I don't even know if they're there anymore, is they ended up having to park their truck inside of a concrete area that could hold the volume of the oil tank. And I think you're rightly that you've got, and Walter's right, that you've got some big problems and we should be going after all of these problems. But in this case, we've got a permit coming up that says, should we grant this permit? And as I look at two things that I'm gonna have to challenge. One is there's no way that someone's gonna convince me that they know what's going on their property 24 hours, 7 days a week in real time. But the other is these two gentlemen are saying is they're going to be down to, I think he said 3 trucks would be the only ones that aren't on pavement. Yes. And if we're talking about someone digging in saying, I don't want to put pavement down that's big enough for 3 trucks, then we're really saying, I just don't want to do it because I don't want to do it. It doesn't matter what the cost is. But I personally think what you're pointing out at the old cash and carry is something that we need to go after. For all I know, that's the source of the contaminated well.
Well, we want to refurbish this property. We want to updating the property. And one of the updates we want to put a parking lot, real parking lot. But to buying the property right now and invest the money and updating everything is very costly. So this is our future. And we want to make a nice pavement for our trucks. Of course, I want to do it right away. We have to just spread our budget wisely this year because the purchasing and we're growing. So this is my point. It doesn't matter. Maybe that happen in 6 months, maybe that happen in 2 months, maybe 2 years, but that's my plan.
It'd be interesting. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So we're hearing that between now and maybe June, the area under those 3 trucks will in fact be paved.
Yeah.
Okay.
We paved it and we make it nice. And like I said, that's my goal because I want to look nice. I'm very proud of my business. We've been a nice business. I want to be looking nice and everything go by the book. But like I said, go ahead.
So prior to that happening, is it possible to have the pads permanently
Yeah,
on the ground and the cars or the trucks parked in the same place every time, right over a pad?
Yep.
100%.
Okay.
Because
I'm-
after something leaks, it's too late. So we need assurance that there would be protection prior to the time you've actually got this paved.
You know what? I already talking to Mary's Excavating, and they make me a plan how much it cost me to pave this parking lot. I'm not getting the numbers yet, but as soon as I get the numbers, we maybe do that partially. So to put the 2-3 trucks first, then we extend that later. But we go and do right.
And in the meantime, we'll use all the oil absorbent
Oil
pads
absorbent
under the
pads.
trucks.
I could accept as an answer to what we asked the planning board, just listening to you guys, if you were to send something to the Board of Health that says, picking up what Herb says, picking up what Lee said, if you sent a letter to the board saying our plan is going to be that by June 30th or July 1st, 2022, we'll have the area for the trucks that being parked in paved. And up until that time, we will put the pads under the sections of the trucks that leak until that time. And that's how we would propose to meet the board's requirement. And if you put that in writing to us, I don't know how Herb and Lee would feel, but I could support that would meet our plan.
Thank you. We do
I
that.
don't know, that's just my opinion. That's not what Herb and Lee, I'm just floating that for Herb and Lee.
Thank you so much. But like I said in the beginning, big purchase for us, and we start growing. And soon as we get a proposal from Mayor's Excavating, we put the numbers together, and they're gonna happen because that's my plan in the beginning. I wanted this property look nice. We're talking about to pave the driveway and the parking lot too. So,
Herb and Lee, what do you think?
Well,
Would
I think you've got to assure us that the oil absorbent pad will be in place and your trucks will be parked over those to preempt any possible spill. So we don't want spills either. We want protection if it were to happen. So we want assurance from you that there will be pads in place that will be underneath vehicles that will be parked over them until you actually get this area paved.
Absolutely.
100%.
Just to make sure we're understanding correctly.
Yeah.
So we have a garage bay, 5 garage bays. What we can park inside, we will park at least 5 trucks inside. Any remaining trucks that are not parked over existing pavement property, we will be sure to put oil absorbent pads underneath. And we're welcome to invite you guys down and show you that or send pictures as evidence. And then that is a temporary solution while we, after purchasing the property, work with Marion's Excavating to have a portion paved that we can park the remaining trucks over without the use of those pads at that time. And the day we're going to say is probably by July 31st.
Why
Okay?
don't you put that in writing to us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You receive it by tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that, with what I'm hearing and everyone's suggestions, I think we certainly have, in my way of thinking, got a productive meeting here. I heard more good things than I anticipated, so I'm definitely on board with this. Speaking for myself.
Well, it sounds like the three of us have said that. So we're all set. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Wonderful,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Pauline, if you're still
Thank
on,
you.
I'll send you a letter, Colleen, that you can forward to Dick, Urban Lee. And guys, thank you so much. If we can ever do anything to support any Board of Health efforts or the town overall, we're thrilled to join the community. Looking forward to giving you guys our tax dollars as opposed to South Hadley.
Yeah, we're anxious to have you in us.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful
Have
night.
a good night.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. We didn't, Colleen, I skipped the minutes again. So,
Okay, yeah.
we've got two sets of minutes, the 4th and the 11th. Can we approve those both?
I'm fine with them.
Yes, thank you.
And I am too, Colleen, so they're both approved.
Okay,
Next one is, Title Fives. We've got 16 Parish Hill Road. That's conditionally passes by David Kibbe. 403 Bachelor Street Front. And, actually, I'd like to talk, let's do the first one. Are we okay to receive actually, we can do all three. With 403 Bachelor Street, Front, Neil Jackson, conditionally passes, needs further evaluation. And 403 Bachelor Street, rear, Neil Jackson, needs further evaluation. Can we receive all three of those, Lee?
Yes, yes. I mean, these
Now
are,
that-
all the properties have been abandoned for a long time, so it's gonna be in some point, there may be some minor component work to be done, but we can't do any assessments until somebody's actually there. They've been empty for several years, both of them.
I can't see who's whistling, but so I can't really shut them off, but anyway, so Herb, are you okay with receiving these?
I am fine with receiving them.
And I am too, and Lee, you said you are, so we can receive them. The question that I have at 403 Bachelor Street, one of those needs a distribution box, I think, and a permit. My concern with that and the fact that it needs a distribution box means that we ought to be putting the same deed restriction to let that get done as part of that permit that says this is only one well on this property. And we should either be telling people, just as we did with the church on Bachelor Street, we should be saying that there has to be a deed restriction before we give that permit, saying these properties can't be separated unless they put a new well in.
I think, and I don't know, but I believe the layout would prohibit separation. The two buildings are probably 30 or 40 feet apart. They're both very, very small. But I suppose if there's a way to separate, the realtor might pull that off. So yes, your point is exactly correct about restrictions on this, so that they don't try to do a split with only one supplying water source.
Yeah, because as it turns out that it seems like they're on the path by saying they're giving two Title Fives, not one Title V with two different systems.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yep.
So how do we make sure, Lee, I guess you're the guy that's going to be again in the feet on the ground, or with the feet on the ground here, that when it comes to that distribution box, Colleen, maybe you can get to whoever. In fact, maybe since Neil is the one that's going to have to do the permit for the distribution box, tell Neil that the deed restriction locking these properties in needs to be filed before we can get that permit for the
Okay.
distribution box.
Okay.
Okay. The next one, closing municipal buildings and unvaccinated employees. Lee, that you weren't at that meeting, and Herb and I decided to let us get a chance to discuss this. The selectmen had asked that the buildings be closed to outside visitors until I believe it was the 9th of February. But Herb and I did it only until tomorrow, so we'd have a chance to talk about this. And I see that Jen was on from the library, but so Herb, do you want to give your opinion here? Or suggestion, not necessarily your opinion.
My suggestion is that we should do everything we can to protect our town's employees, and whatever that takes, we ought to consider it.
I gave some thought in the last week, Herb, and some of it is after reading what's going on in Northampton, and I'm looking at we're probably one of the few communities that have closed buildings down to outside people. We're probably in a spot that if we're lucky, this peak is less than a month ago, if we're lucky. And just wondering, in fact, when Chris Martin talked to me about it, he was afraid that the whole town, if we ended up getting town employees sick because of people coming in, that the town could be in a position that it couldn't function while the people were out sick. And so you and I had around Herb about what buildings were involved and not involved. And so the first thing I wondered is, does the library fit into that same fear? If the library personnel got sick, although we wouldn't like them to get sick for sure, does that threaten the ability to the town to do business? And then the other one for me is for the one or two people that are involved. If there are one, I think I was told there is at least one that's not vaccinated. Is it that? And I also looked at what the city of Boston did with their vaccination program, and what they defined as having a vaccine card to go into restaurants and whatever is just proof that you had one vaccination, which doesn't do much. I just wondered if we all thought it's worth, the problems of defining what's a vaccination and how we're going to get this thing implemented if the whole thing's going to go away in a month. I guess if you just ask me what I think off the top of my head that I would say makes sense, it would be to grant what the selectmen said for the two town offices, the two town halls, leave the library out of it and just say what the selectmen asked for, keep out the non-employees. But that's my 2 cents. Herb and Lee, you got the floor.
Well, we haven't heard anything from Lee about any of this since it was just you and I talking about it, Dick. So I'd like to hear what Lee has to say.
I guess the library is, and I don't know, I'm just going off of what I've been told, is that, maybe this has changed, so humor me here, that occasionally the library becomes a gathering point for people in town to get out of the house, go someplace and hang around for a while, bring some snacks in and some coffee and tea and spend, an hour or two in another environment. If that has been forbidden and I'm not aware of it, then there's no point in me continuing my conversation. If it's the way it is right now, then that does concern me going forward, that it will become a potential site for the transmission of this terrible disease. And maybe Gene has already forbid that from taking place. I really don't know, but this was an issue early on when the library was open in its infancy.
I guess if we tried to do it in an orderly fashion, let's start whether we want to put any restrictions at all. The selectmen asked to have it restricted to employees through February 9th, and to review whether it's extended based on the COVID performance in the town. And the definition of what town buildings are wasn't clear. So that the first thing is, as of tomorrow, there'll be no restrictions on anything. So do we want to, so if we look through and say, do we want any restrictions any place? The next one is, do we want the restrictions to be just employees? The next one was do we want to include non-vaccinated? And I guess finally it says, what are we defining as the buildings involved? So the first one is, do we want to extend this restriction beyond tomorrow?
Yes, I think we should.
Lee?
Yeah, I would agree with her. The numbers are still incredibly high, and it's probably in our best interest to continue that.
And I agree. So that we will, and do we want to put that date, the date that the selectmen asked as February 9th? I suggest yes.
Since we're talking about an arbitrary date, that's as arbitrary as any other, so I'll accept that date.
Sure.
And I will too. I will too. So we've got the first one. Do we want to add in the restriction of some definition of non-vaccinated employees can't come in to the buildings? Do we want to add that in?
I do. Yes.
We're talking about what, 1 or 2 people total? Is that what I'm gathering here?
I don't know if it's more than one. I've been told that it's at least one. My problem with it, I agree with Herb that a person who's not vaccinated is a hazard. The problem that I have with it is defining what's a vaccination. Is there a time period to get them vaccinated? Do we do testing in lieu of vaccination? It just, to me, it's too difficult to try to manage in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Well, I don't think so. I think someone who refuses to be vaccinated, that's prima facie to me. I think they have defined it pretty clearly. No, I'm not going to be vaccinated. Well, that's fine. That's their business, but they shouldn't be in our shop if that's the case.
Herb, to support your stand,
Mm-hmm.
I will say that the State House in Massachusetts won't let people who aren't vaccinated, elected officials, come into the building and participate face to face.
Yeah. Well, whether the State House does it or not, it doesn't make any sense for us to have people who are refusing to be vaccinated. And those are the people who are most likely, not exclusively, but most likely to be infected, to potentially expose our other employees. So you don't want to be vaccinated, that's fine, but you can't come to work.
How about, we're gonna have to define vaccination though. So do you say a shot? Do you say fully vaccinated, and unless you're tested on a weekly basis? We certainly, if you look at what the schools are about to adopt, they are saying that every student is going to have to be tested once a week. So do you, in that case, whether they're vaccinated or not, but do we say that you're either fully vaccinated or tested once a week?
No, I don't think we should say that. I don't think this is an either or. They're vaccinated or they're not vaccinated. And vaccinated in our present climate means having 2 vaccine administrations. And whether that means a booster or not, I'm not going to quibble right now because I'm not positive. But they've been vaccinated. We don't test all the rest of the people in our facilities. And even if we did test them, 5 minutes after the test is done, they can be infected. So they're vaccinated or they're not vaccinated.
Lee, I'm looking for your thoughts.
Does, going back, to that, the State House, is it a vaccination, or testing regulation or vaccination only regulation?
I don't know what it is today. It was vaccinated, period.
Okay. I mean, Herb's point is of course valid that you can be negative at 10 o'clock in the morning and you can be a hot mess that same evening. from a close contact exposure to a positive person. So the rule of thumb here, of course, is not to jeopardize the masses for the few. Now, that being said, should we be concerned, or just not our spot to worry about any, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I already started. Are we going to be concerned about a legal challenge to this, or do we just go with it and let the chips fall where they may?
Well, if you're going through, that you at least, whether we do it or not, that almost everybody has got something in that says if you've got a valid religious reason not to be vaccinated, comes out that if you've been tested positive for COVID in the last 90 days, does that qualify you? That just to think it through a little bit. And if it's one is a philosophical question, and that one's 100%, in my view, 100% what Herb's talking about is that you've got a high risk person or 2-person, or if it's 10 people. But the other is the practical part of how you're going to do this.
So if we tell the person they have to be vaccinated, I don't think they can get them both done by February 9th. But that's really, that's not, I don't believe, our calling to define that. But if they are told not to come to work, does that mean without the vaccine, does that mean that February 9th they can come back to work without the vaccine?
Well, it depends if we extend it or not.
Okay, so in theory, this could be repeated at in and around the 9th of February, depending on the numbers.
Yeah, well, I would expect that. In fact, from Herb's standpoint about fully vaccinated, since we didn't say booster, someone could go and get the Johnson & Johnson shot tomorrow, which the Johnson & Johnson 1 dose is considered fully vaccinated. So this could be all over. This could be all over.
Yeah, and they could just run down to the Mullen Center or Hoyt Community College or whatever, and theoretically have that done before lunchtime tomorrow.
So if you guys are saying, go ahead, Herb.
A practical question. If we exclude someone because they haven't been vaccinated, does that mean that they don't draw their salary?
No idea.
Well,
I don't know either.
I don't know either, but if it doesn't mean that, then we've got more to consider here, because I'm not going to vote to exclude someone from work and then pay them for being obstinate about not getting vaccinated. I refuse to do that. So I'd like to know from Chris Martin or whomever that if someone is excluded from work because they're not vaccinated, they don't draw a paycheck during that time.
Well, we're not going to get that answer tonight.
should we confer with Chris Martin and pull together a quick meeting later in the week?
No, I don't want to do that.
All right.
That's my opinion. No, I do not want to have another meeting later in the week
All right.
about this issue, which to me makes no sense at all. So I have nothing that would suggest that I'm going to put myself out for an individual who refuses to get vaccinated. No, I'm not going to do that.
I get it.
So our options, I look at the options that we have. We certainly could say, let's just vote that you can't come in the building if you're not vaccinated and let it fall where it falls. We have another one that says we're not going to do it, period. And then there's another that complies with Herb and Lee that says we're going to push that decision off for 2 more weeks and discuss it at the next meeting where we will be able to have Chris's involvement. I don't know if there's another option, but those are the 3 that seem like the logical ones.
I'm sorry, Dick, would you parse out 1 and 3 again?
Okay, one is you just do it and say you can't come in, period, and you let it fall where it falls. The 2 was no, you don't add that restriction at all. And 3 was that we say that that's our intent, but because we don't have enough information, we are going to defer that decision to the next meeting and have Chris's involvement before that decision is made.
I move that option number 1 is what this board ought to adhere to enthusiastically.
Lee, what is your thought?
I could support what Herb's talking about right now.
I can too. I can too. So if that's, then the third one, the third option, the third subject that we have. So far, we're going to continue it to the whatever number of buildings that we are. We're going to continue to the 9th of February. The second is we are going to say that we are excluding non-employees and non-vaccinated. We're going to exclude non-employees and non-vaccinated employees. And the third issue we have, if we look at town buildings, Herb and I already excluded the schools. So now if we look at the
We also excluded the shop of Dave DeRozier.
So then the other 4 buildings that we have on the list, I guess that disappears tomorrow anyway. So I guess we look at those. What do we have? 6 buildings. So we have or more than 7 buildings. The 2 schools, the highway department, the safety complex, the library. I guess we've got the old library and the 2 town halls. So what are we looking at for buildings? Are we going to limit it to the 2 town halls?
I'd be happy with that.
That would be in keeping with what Chris was afraid of having go down. It would be that the functioning part of the town wouldn't be able to work if those 2 buildings went down. Lee, what are your thoughts?
No, I agree with the direction that you and Herb are going in here.
So, what I'd like to hear a motion for is that through the 9th of February, that non-employee for the 2 town halls, that we will exclude from those buildings non-employees and non-vaccinated employees. That's what I'd like to hear. Can we have a motion for that?
I think you just made the motion.
Okay, I make that motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
And I am. So it's unanimous, Colleen. So just to go over it, it's going to be for the 2 town halls through the 9th of February. And we will exclude non-employees and unvaccinated employees from those 2 buildings.
So if there's someone that is not vaccinated, they cannot come to work tomorrow and through February 9th?
That's correct. Now, I'm guessing that they may not know that by tomorrow, but yeah,
Right.
it's yeah, and in fact, it would be to make it consistent with what Herb and I did last week. We said that the current regulation goes through tomorrow, so that this new regulation would go into effect Thursday.
Thursday,
So
okay,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
okay, so we've
The
done
other
that.
buildings are not affected then, they don't have.
Not
any
affected. Right.
restrictions. Okay,
Well, they still have the face mask restrictions,
yes,
but not the prohibition.
they're not closed to the public, yeah, okay,
Okay.
okay.
So does this
So-
mean my library can be open tomorrow, or do I have to wait until Thursday?
Yes.
Curveball.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man.
I'd like to,
Go ahead, Dick.
I would like to also make a motion that we eliminate the library. Eliminate the library, the safety complex, and we already have the public works out of it. So I'd make a motion that the current regulation that goes through tomorrow be modified to eliminate the library and the public safety complex. Can I hear a second to that?
Sure.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
I am too. So that's carried unanimously. So that answers your question, Jen.
Great, thank you so much. I have scaled back all of our in-person programming, just so everyone's aware. Everything's gone back to Zoom, probably through the end of this month, and then we'll try to get back in person starting in February. So we are being extra careful on our end as well.
If we're lucky, Jen, we're gonna see the numbers go down. Without a doubt, the numbers from the state, at least in the last week, God bless you,
Thank you.
the numbers from the state have positivity dropping fairly quickly. So,
That's great.
and I just put in Colleen's mess that she sent us today. It's not her mess. It's the town's mess. But the numbers there look like they're pretty flat, terribly high, but flat.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll start down.
Well,
Yes, let's hope.
it's never over till it's over, so
Yeah, that's
wouldn't get
right.
too excited yet.
No. Oh,
Well, thank you. I appreciate everything you guys do.
okay. I don't know what we can I don't have it in me on septic system reviews right now, but I guess we
What
can.
about the
Oh,
Dollar General letter?
we've got the
Colleen,
dollar,
behave.
what?
I told Colleen to behave.
No, she definitely has. I'm okay sending it out. I don't think it's everything that it could be, but I think it's a shot across their bow saying that we got problems down there. And by the way, my thing was supposed to be I'm looking at it it looks like it's about every other day I look at it, but the water's still in there. One day, the water in the second basin dropped down. The ice was still up, but the water dropped down enough for me to see some rocks. But there's been water in the forebay, every ice on it on most days, but it's still there. So I could support sending that letter.
It's there
Lee.
and frozen.
Yep.
Because
Lee,
I stopped by and look at it too.
Yeah. Lee, are you okay sending that letter out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do we at some point hope they're going to respond and just forget about it, or is it an idea to perhaps have a brief contact with town council about this going forward in case it heats up before it goes away? Because I'm guessing if we tell these guys we're going to close the door, then the corporate world is going to be a little bit upset with us, which is okay, and it's going to end up in court. That would be my guess. I could be wrong.
Well, we told them we would get some data. I think it's probably worthwhile to talk to town council. I think the data is going to say the thing it's got water in it, which is what we said is going to happen. And I certainly agree. You don't wait until the 90th day and say, by the way, you can't operate. But talking to, go ahead.
We're not doing that.
No.
We are giving them notice. We've given them plenty of notice.
Oh, I agree. This is nothing new with these guys. Absolutely
And so
right.
I personally don't want to invoke our counsel in this now. Why do I want to pay our lawyer to fool around with this?
I don't want him to do anything. I just want him to be cognizant of what may be coming. And maybe that point is of no value. I just thought that maybe if he was aware of it, he could maybe do a little bit of background research on all the letters back and forth and all the patience the board has given this company to get it together,
So-
which has been with not much result.
So what is that? $200 an hour, $300 an hour, $500 an hour? Now, I don't want Consul to be involved.
Yeah, but I think, Herb, he does. I've talked to him before about this. And
Yeah. So what, so you've talked to him about it. Okay. So why do we need to talk to him more about it?
because we've started something, I agree with Lee. We've started something that could end up in court. The other is I feel relatively certain that our statement of saying, gee, we hit you with a public health nuisance and you haven't solved that. But in reality, we did tell them when we actually did the formal public health nuisance, we did tell them we might come back, but you in fact have got empty basins. You hired an engineer, you did what they said, and the basins are empty. We did mention at the time that it's in the middle of the drought too. But we did say that they complied. So the letter that we're sending out, I don't think is absolutely, it's not bulletproof good enough to be telling someone we're going to pull your license. And that's where the lawyer would be helping us.
So you're suggesting the letter shouldn't be sent until it's reviewed by a lawyer?
No, I think we should. I think we voted on sending it. I think we should send it.
Well, then, so if it isn't bulletproof, it isn't bulletproof. But I think,
I agree.
so send the letter.
We all voted to send the letter. But this
Okay.
issue is should we get counsel involved? And I think we should get counsel involved.
Yeah, my point, Herb, of course, not to beat this to death, is that when you take any business like that and potentially shut them down, then they're going to be a little bit irritated at the loss of revenue, which is the only way to get their attention. But I'm just want not to have town council be caught off guard saying, what the hell's going on here? You guys didn't let me know. Now I've got this letter of demand and so on and so forth, and I'm not prepared to go to battle. That's my only point here, is to get everybody on the same page of being aware of what we do and the potential consequences of our actions. I have no sympathy for Dollar General, but I just want us to enter the battle prepared to go for the win.
And Herb, I don't know for sure, but I think that the council gets some amount of money every year for what he has to do unless he really ends up going in court. But the normal being a counsel to the boards, I think is included in his fee.
Okay.
Unless you really say no, and we could put it to a vote, but I'm on this one, I'm leaning towards get the help that we might need, that I expect if we're going to be tough on this, and I think we should be tough on it, that we could end up with in a legal battle, we should just be prepared.
So put a CC on the letter and send it to council.
I don't think that's a good enough way, Herb. I think we're gonna get this thing thrown in our face and someone's gonna look at us and say, hey, Board of Health, you overstepped your bounds, and then we're gonna be playing catch up. I do think we ought to I think we should copy him on the letter for sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
But I think it's worth a 10-minute call, Herb.
Go right ahead.
Okay, then I will do that. We do have a building permit for Amher Street. Colleen, I don't see it on here, but you sent us something.
Yeah, I just got it today, so I didn't tell him he'd get it. I think we need the installer's sign off on it
But
too. I
we've
don't know
got
how
the
to-
we've got the
Look at the
engineer who signed it and stamped it, saying that it's installed the way he wanted. And Lee, did you inspect it? This is Healy on.
Oh, yes. That's a massive system way back in the woods behind Kizier's farm. Marion Brothers Excavating installed this thing. And I met the engineer on site for that deep hole test about a month and a half ago. And it's all, as far as I can tell, and with the shooting the grades and so forth, it's exactly correct in every aspect.
It's interesting, the well passes, but I don't know if you read stuff on what it is, on the advisory stuff. It's, I think for sodium, which is the advisory max is 20 parts per million. And this thing's got like 300 parts per million. And what else was up? This, I think sulfate.
Chloride was high.
And I think sulfate was like 50 was the advisor, and it was like 800 or something. So I think we ought to just sign off on it and let I don't think the building inspector, I talked to him last Thursday when I went to the grow house, and the building inspector said he's got a lot of stuff that he's not ready to let him go on. But I don't have a problem with signing off on this. Lee, sounds like you've been there and are okay. Herb, how about you?
Whatever you guys want to do.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll sign off on it.
Okay.
I think I will, since he's sent me emails a month ago, I think I am going to tell him, your water passes, but I wouldn't drink that stuff. You ought to be doing something about it. But what other? Oh, just so it's on the record, two things that it looks like have to be at least noted. One is what was the Amher Street 229, Colleen? Was that the waste disposal complaint? Remember we were the DEP sent us that 227 maybe?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but
Whatever the
227, I think.
whatever the number is. I went in there in fact, it was on a cold morning. And the road was plowed. You go in there, they're way, way in the back. Looks like they're getting ready to put in a foundation. There was some construction stuff for that operation. On the way in, whoever it is got these most unbelievable piles of cut split wood that are so square. It's so beautiful out in there. And there was no evidence of that building demolition material that the complaint was about. So that and that I talked to Kevin O'Grady today about the two grow houses, and he would like to have us condemn the two houses. But I can't, until I go into the second one, I can't say whether it's condemned, although Kevin said that the second one is not engineered as well and is not installed as well. So he said you can even see mold growing on the walls in there. And I'm not sure it's a nice place, but it sounds to me like the town is going to take them over or the intent of the town as drug properties.
Yeah. Well, that one on Aldridge was just sold not too long ago.
I think they said that in 2020.
And that is correct. We looked it up.
Yeah. So,
Dick, is there a caution on us, the board condemning property? Does that mean we're responsible for its ultimate disposition as far as possibly taking it down? From a financial perspective is where I'm coming from here.
I don't believe that's it. It's a function of saying it's not suitable for human habitation. And it turns out that the building inspector puts the first level on, and then we do and say you just can't live there. We're not condemning it as being unsafe. We're condemning it as being uninhabitable. The building inspector then gets it back, and he's the one that decides whether something's got to happen to it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And what are the criteria we use for saying a place is uninhabitable?
Well, in my case, when I went in on the first one, is to say, even though the police probably shut the electricity off, is to say there's no electricity in here, and therefore there's also no heat and there's no water. My guess is there's broken pipes now, but you can't tell that because there's no water pressure. But also the doors had been nailed shut. The ventilation had been messed up in the building, altered, and the windows were all boarded up. So it's just not suitable to be living in that space.
So a contractor could come in and fix all of those things.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So it's just not habitable in its existing state. So someone could go and say, I'm going to spend $50,000 and say, now please inspect it, and it's all set.
Got it. Okay. So saying it's not inhabitable doesn't mean that it's going to be raised.
No, that's what I was answering Lee. We're saying that people can't live in it in its existing state, but that doesn't mean that it's an unsafe building. It just means that it's not suitable for people living in it right now. So, but it just, when you look at these things, I just wonder now, on all these buildings, especially good-sized buildings that don't look like they're being lived in. As I looked into it, it said there's some good ways for us all to look at things. One of them is having buildings that have windows that you can't see into, that look dark and no lights at night, or sections that only have the same windows that are lit up, and not having much action of cars. But there are people that live within 100 feet, 150 feet of this building that look like they've been living there for a long time. So that's all that I have for tonight.
Good. Move, we adjourn.
Okay. Lee, are you set with that too?
Absolutely.
Colleen, can we leave?
All set.
Okay. Good night, everybody.